right? It's not easy growing up in Africa, no matter who you are or where you're from, right? Obviously, I'm white, but I didn't grow up privileged, right? I grew up in a country that was in the middle of a civil war. Things were difficult. Most of my friends were Black. I ran track and field, right? How many white guys were running track and field in Zimbabwe in those times? Not many.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Beyond the Finish Line with Star, where athleticism meets inspiration, a safe space where athletes come to share their untold stories, humble beginnings, setbacks, and how they overcame, diving into intersections of sports, lifestyle, and personal growth. And of course, I am your host, Star Mpama. Well, I want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you who has been a part of Beyond the Finish Line with Star. And if you're just coming across this for the first time, thank you. But also do well to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on that notification button for more inspirational stories by these beautiful athletes, coaches, and persons who have gone through the sector of life that you want to listen to, you want to learn from. I mean, as humans that we hear stories, and these stories helps to impact and shaping our lives in one way or the other, and also help us to make decisions that wouldn't put us into that mistake they have actually made. So without wasting so much of anybody's time, today's guest happens to be, they are always special. You know that every guest on Beyond the Finish Line with Star is always special. He is, or better still, he was an athlete and now a coach. Let me start with his accolades as an athlete. He is a two-time Olympian, holds the Zimbabwe national records in the 400-meter hurdles, a three-time World Championship finalist, an All-African Games silver medalist, an African Games bronze medalist. Moving down to the NCAA circuit, 25 NCAA individual champions, 6 sub-10 100-meter sprinters, 14 Olympians. He has been a coach for the past 25 years of his life, and he has coached in some of the best programs here in the United States. I know you must be wondering who this person is. Yes! And guess what? He's African. He's from Zimbabwe, like I mentioned earlier. He's none other than Coach Ken Harnden of University of Auburn. So welcome to Beyond the Finish Line with Star. And we are honored to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I have a tradition.
Okay.
Most times I introduce my guest, but I like it when they introduce themselves. The reason is because sometimes I might omit, the level of excellency you carry is on a higher level. And please, can we meet you?
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you, look, I don't think that I do anything special. So, but I'll tell you who I am for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So who are you, please?
Good morning. My name is Ken Harnden. I'm the associate head coach at Auburn University with the track and field program. I've been coaching for 24 years, have coached at 4 prestigious universities, Florida State, University of Georgia, University of Tennessee, and now at Auburn. Blessed to have a fantastic group of young athletes here at Auburn. Very excited to see what this season is all about. I have been blessed throughout my career with fantastic athletes and the ability to drive the bus, as I say, and allow them to compete at great meets. So I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I came to America when I was 17 to run track and field. I ran at 2 Olympic Games, Atlanta in 1996 and Sydney in 2000. And since then, I've been lucky enough to be part of this profession, right? This coaching profession where we help young people realize their dreams.
Amazing. Well, I was expecting the introduction to be more of the accolades, but it's fine. If this is you trying to be humble, it's all good.
Well,
it's all good. It's out there.
The accolades are not mine, right? Like my career was my 2 Olympic games. I won an NCAA title in the 400 hurdles. I made 2 World Championship finals. I did those things, but the reason we're on the call today is for coaching, right? And the accolades are the athletes, not mine. So it's all about them.
Well, the reason why we're here today is all about Coach Ken. Everything that has to do with Coach Ken. So being a 2-time Olympian, producing 25 NCAA athletes, the list is long, is endless. It's still part of who Coach Ken is.
This is
so
true.
without wasting much of anybody's time, tell us, being a Zimbabwean, did I pronounce that right?
You did. Yeah, you did a good job. Yes.
Okay, you have not just produced amazing athletes. You came into the NCAA circuit, which is one of the most competitive circuits in the world when it comes to the field of track and field, and you excellently produced athletes. I know I met you at the World Under-20 Championships,
yes,
where definitely you coached the champion. And looking at you with what you do, you were in Nigeria with Favor Ashe. Tell us, how did this all start for you? 2-time Olympian, national record, being a coach. You know what you did the other time, that was introduction. We need you to dive.
Well,
because I keep asking myself, as an African that you are, how you have come in here and you have stayed and dominated from Zimbabwe. Please,
yeah.
we want to know what it is. What is the untold story of Coach Ken?
Well, I think the untold story is what every African knows, right? Hard work is the only way to get where we want to be. I think when you grow up in a place like we grew up, you understand that hard work is the foundation for everything in life, right? It's not easy growing up in Africa, no matter who you are or where you're from, right? Obviously, I'm white, but I didn't grow up privileged, right? I grew up in a country that was in the middle of a civil war. Things were difficult. Most of my friends were black. I ran track and field, right? How many white guys were running track and field in Zimbabwe in those times? Not many. So for me, I think the work ethic has been everything, right? I came to this country when there were no cell phones, there was no email, and I had to figure it out on my own. So I've made that the basis of what we do. Let's work hard, let's outwork everybody else, and let's do things really, really well. And then the second layer to that, from a personal standpoint, is to do everything I can to take care of my people. I think if you ask the athletes I've coached through 24, 25 years, they will tell you that no matter what happened, where they were, I was always there to take care of them, to make sure that they got what they needed, they were where they wanted to be, that we did everything in our power to make them the best student athlete and the best person they could be. So those things were part of my upbringing, and they've been, part of my coaching. So for me, it's about the athletes. And, I check my ego. My ego is big, like most athletes, right? But I leave it at home if I can. And it's about the athletes. It's about their career. And then, when we talk about the NCAA, I think for international athletes, one of the biggest hurdles to get over to come to the States is the idea that they're going to be overcompeted, and that they're going to be used up by the NCAA system, and then there's nothing left as a professional athlete. So when I started, my goal was to treat young athletes the way they would if they had already turned professional. So let's look at a Usain Bolt or a Justin Gatling, and let's say, well, they ran 28, 30 races a season. So let's compete in that manner, right? Let's have an idea of what this athlete needs to do beyond the NCAA season. They're going to compete at the Commonwealth Games for their country. They're going to have to go home for trials. Let's include those competitions in that total number. And let's make sure we're not, running these young people to death early in their careers. And that goes for each season, but also for their entire career. And so we've done some things like that where we've paid real close attention to to what's important in that particular season. If you look at Ajay last year, he ran 10 flat in Switzerland. He ran 10:02 in the first round at the Olympic Games. 10:02 is a PR for him. 10 flat was a PR for him. So he was peaking when it was at the most important time of the year, which was the Olympic Games. And that was by design. That wasn't because it just happened, right? Favor didn't run well there, but Favor had been injured at the NCAA meet. So we missed a month of training after NCAAs, and it really caused a problem for him. But Makanaka Ishe Chiramba, the young man from Zimbabwe that made the 200 final, same thing. He was running at his best in the Olympic Games, and he made the final. That's a guy whose PR was 20.6 when he arrived a year ago. So, I think we've done a good job of taking care of not just what's important for the university, but what's important for that individual in their career.
Okay. While I had Maka as a guest some weeks back, and he talked me down through, or he took me through the process to how he came to Auburn, and how he got noticed by you when he was still in Zimbabwe, still trying to figure out if he was going to do American football or if he was going to run track.
Yes.
Now, what I want to ask is, you being a coach, you said something now that for you, it's not all about coming into the NCAA circuit and running out an athlete. It's being able to put them in that space where they are ready when it matters the most. My question is, how do you get to pick out these athletes? Now, this is what it is. I know for every athlete that is being recruited into the NCAA, it is not all who gives the performance that is needed. Well, it is not all that is a situation of, he or she didn't work hard enough. It might just be a thing of program challenge and the rest. Yes. So in situations like that, what would you as a coach do? Because looking at Maka and how he progressed, how you had so much faith, you kept waiting until he was able to hit the standard to come into Auburn. So I want to know, what exactly do you do differently as a coach? Well,
I think I'm recruiting the person as well as the athlete, right? They have to be somebody that fits our ideals and what we believe the important things in life are, right? Are you a good person? Are you somebody that's loyal? Are you willing to be coachable? Are you willing to work hard, right? Like the baseline here. We have a lot of athletes in the NCAA that feel like this should be easy, right? That it should be an easy path, a downhill run. And the truth is it's not. Everyone's working hard, right? And we talk about this every day at practice. What's Noah Lyles doing today, right? When I talk to Jacoby, what's Grant Holloway doing today? Did you watch his Instagram? Have you seen him out at the club going partying, right? If he's not going out to the club and he's not partying, and you are, then how am I going to coach you to be better than him, right? So we start out with figuring out who the person is and what they are. Obviously, Maka's uncle was taught by my mom in 3rd grade in 1994. So there's a connection, right? So his uncle sent me an email and said, hey, this is my nephew, and he wasn't good enough to come to the SEC at that point. So we put him at a Division II school. And his coach there is a fantastic coach. He actually ran for me at Florida State. So, I trusted what his coach was doing there and the progression. And I also knew that a lot of what he was doing was based off our training program. So he already fit the program. And then the other part is the buy-in, right? Like, you mentioned Favor, and then we talk about Ajay, and now we talk about Israel. And they're all following each other because of what the one before did, right? And then, where they went, how they progressed, right? Favor ran one fast race in his life before he came to the States, right? He ran 10:13, but the average of his top 10 times was 10:4. So, he's a 10:4 on average guy coming to America, and he ran 9:99 as a freshman. There's obviously a good progression there, right? Then he ran 9:95, then he ran 9:94. And the closer you get to those 9.8s and 9.7s, the harder it is to PR every year. But when we're consistent and we're running more 9-second races, then I think that speaks to the next young person. So we're looking for talent, obviously, but more about the person than anything else. Come fit our system, be part of our team, And I think the difference for me at every place I've been is that I haven't been willing to just take the best athlete on paper. I've picked and chosen the people that fit what we do and how we do things. So we've turned away some people that are really, really good because they didn't fit our group, right? And I think that's important.
So would you define all of this as greatness, or would you say it was something that was built in and became greatness? Would you say it's something that was inborn, or it was something that was brought out?
Well, I think it's both, right? You look at the young athletes we've got. Jacoby Tharp is world junior champ, and ran the fastest American time for a junior over the full height hurdles ever. He's obviously supremely talented, right? There's a level of ability there that God put in, right? He came through the assembly line, and God said, okay, keep moving, you're blessed, right? And he gave him that opportunity. Okay. He blessed him with those tools. But at the end of the day, those tools are not enough, right? The hard work that goes with it, the willingness to be coached, the willingness to sacrifice things in your life that other people your age are doing, right? Think about all the college students in America. What do they do every Friday and Saturday night? They're at the club, they're out, they're drinking, they're partying, they're meeting girls or boys or whatever it is. And you have to sacrifice some of those things, right? One of the biggest sacrifices we're working on with Jacoby right now is his diet, right? He loves McDonald's, and it's not conducive to being the best high hurdler in the world. So it's something we're progressing our way through. But that's a sacrifice. And I think when you put together the ability that God gave that young person, and then you put them in a group of people that are all willing to sacrifice and work hard and do those things, then there's a common goal, right? And those people work well together. And that's why I say, look, training by yourself is one of the most difficult things anyone can ever do. Training in a group where there are like-minded people, and on the days you don't feel like doing it, somebody else does, and you're forced to live up to that level, that's a fabulous situation, right? That's the most fantastic. Now, when you become the best in the world, it's hard to find people around you that can push you higher than your level. But I think the group we have here at Auburn is that level of group, and they get along great. It's our own little family.
Well, you've mentioned the word sacrifice a lot, and with the research I made, I came across an interview where you talked about when you had an injury and your brother was also involved in that particular competition, and you made a certain sacrifice where you still had to go in not minding what you were going through at that point in time. So can you talk us a bit about your own personal life as an athlete and what made you completely outstanding as an athlete?
Oh, wow. I don't view myself as an outstanding athlete. I went to 2 Olympic Games. I think I was too silly to know that I wasn't as good as everybody else, but I outworked everybody, right? Look, I came to the States on a torn ACL, right? I got screws in my knee when I was 17. And I just wanted to be one of the best athletes in the world. There was a desire to go to the Olympic Games and do something that no one else in my family had done. My uncle would have gone to the 72 Olympics, but Rhodesia boycotted. So there was this, external influence, right, in my life from him. So I came to the States, and I decided that when I got here, I was going to outwork everybody around me until I got to a level that I couldn't go any further. So I went to my first Olympics in Atlanta. I hit hurdle 8 pretty hard. I missed the finals by 1/10 of a second. I'd made the World Championship final the year before, so it was a pretty disappointing Olympics for me. I tore my Achilles 70% of the way through in May of 2000 and did sugar injections and all sorts of crazy stuff into my Achilles to try to heal it. Went to the Olympics with my brother in Sydney with sort of a half an Achilles tendon. Ran around the track, had it's the Olympic Games. It's a fantastic experience, right? And how many people get to say they're an Olympian? But it was not the end of the career that I had hoped for. But I got to go to the Olympic Games with my brother. How many people can say that? So when I look back on it, I think I'm very thankful for that experience. I'm thankful for what the trials and tribulations taught me in terms of how much work I'm capable of doing and how hard I'm capable of working. And in the moment, it's never what you as good and as great as you expect it to be or you hope it was going to be. But in hindsight, what fantastic experiences, right? I got to be part of the Olympic Games. There were 10,000 people there out of 7 billion people on the planet. And I was one of them. And the people I got to meet, the experiences I got to experience were fantastic. So I have no regrets. So only good memories.
Well, even if you said you didn't get to the height you wanted to get to and you don't see yourself as a great, I know you said, as an Olympian, it wouldn't be say was an Olympian.
Yes.
An Olympian is an Olympian. And for me, I define that as greatness. So coming back into the NCAA circuit, you coached at Georgia, you coached at Tennessee, now you are at Auburn. Now, the experiences from all of these places, the experiences with different athletes and coming from one program to the other, how has that impacted into your coaching career as a coach? And what would you say was different in these different programs while you were working as a coach?
Yeah, look, every place has brought its own opportunities, right? Opportunities to meet new people and be part of great programs. But every time you move somewhere, generally, if you're being brought in as a sprints coach, that means there's a problem in the sprints program, right? So, if the sprints are really good and the coach is doing really well, then they don't need to bring me in. Okay. So, everywhere I've gone, I think I've arrived and there hasn't really been a whole lot of talent and a whole lot of success in the recent years of that program. When I took over the sprints program at Florida State, they hadn't had an All-American in the sprints in almost a decade. When I got to Georgia, the men's sprinters had one All-American in 20 years. When I got to Tennessee, they had Christian Coleman and he'd done all these amazing things. But as soon as he was done, there was sort of a couple of 3 years where nothing happened, right? And some of that, when you go to a place, you don't know why that is, right? Maybe the head coaches put money in other areas. Maybe they recruited some athletes that were really good that didn't work out. And you never know, right? So I'm not blaming any coaches or saying anything about those coaches. They're all fantastic coaches. But when you arrive, you have to do things your way and you have to figure it out. So look, it's a difficult process to quote unquote rebuild a program. When we arrived here at Auburn, there were a couple of sprinters on the men's team and that was it. We brought Favor with us from Tennessee. We included Azim Fahmy the next semester. Then we recruited Maka that fall. We recruited Dario in the spring. We brought Ajay the next January. So we've truly built this program on many different ways, right? We've had some transfers. We've had some high school kids. We've had some internationals, some Americans, and the group we've put together, didn't happen overnight. It happened through hard work, right? There were trips to Nigeria. There were recruiting trips all over the world to try to find the best athletes, but also to try to introduce myself to people so I could figure out who they are. And know if they fit what we're trying to do here. So yeah, the process has been interesting. Look, I've been blessed to work at 4 universities that are premier NCAA universities. But I think in my heart, I wish I could have stayed at one place the entire time. That's difficult to do as an assistant coach. When you become a head coach, you're in charge. You get to do things your way. You get to put the scholarship money where you feel like it's best served. I don't ever want to be in a scenario where I have all the scholarship money, but I want to be in a situation where the scholarship money is given to the best athletes so we can be the most successful. And at most of the places I've been, I've had a limit on how much scholarship money I got. And that's frustrating sometimes. So, but you learn to work your way around that and figure things out. And then you learn who you want to work with and who you don't. And And then obviously the longer you do something, the better you get at it, right? So I think, I think, right now I feel like I'm in the prime of my career, right? Like I'm getting really good athletes. I am aware enough to not bring in athletes that maybe my ego gets involved and I'm like, oh, I can make that person great when maybe they don't want to be great, or maybe they're not that talented, right? So I don't allow my ego to tell me I'm a better coach than I actually am, right? I stay within my limits, and I coach people the way that I believe it should be done. And I'm lucky enough to be in a scenario here at Auburn where I'm allowed by Coach Burrell to do that. Which honestly is a pretty special thing, right? You got the world record holder in the 100 meters who's an Olympic champion, and he says, hey, you've never run the 100 since high school, but go ahead and coach those guys, right? And you're the sprints coach, do your thing. And Coach Burrell is fantastic. He doesn't look over my shoulder. He lets me do my job, and we have a great relationship.
Amazing, Coach. There was something I picked from your answer. You mentioned traveling, talking about how you go around to recruit athletes and all of that, Nigeria and all around the world. Mm-hmm. Now, being a father and having a family, how have you been able to balance this? I mean, being able to be an amazing father, even while you're going around the world, being able to be an amazing husband, even while you're going around the world. I mean, it takes a high level of excellency.
Yeah, look, there's no question. It's hard work, right? Again, I'm blessed. I think my best recruiting job in my life is my wife. I have my coverage on that one. So she is amazing in her own right. She's a fantastic coach. She is, she's done things that I could never do in her coaching career. And then she's, she hasn't been coaching near as long as I have. So, that's probably the best recruiting job I've done in my life. Look, I try to be around my kids as much as I possibly can. I try to be present. I try when it's time to be with them and not be half in my job and half with them. That's difficult to do. But, I think there's some benefits to it, right? My boys got to travel with us to Europe this summer and spend, 3 or 4 weeks over there with us and travel with the guys a little bit and see what it's like to compete and those kinds of things. And I love the fact that my sons, even though neither one of them likes to do track and field, they're both they're both basketball players, but they're around high level athletes, right? And they're around these people that have high goals and high expectations and are willing to work hard and sacrifice. So I think any parent would want their children to be around those types of people. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity as a parent to integrate them into that. So yeah, it's hard work. The travel is hard. Look, I went to Nigeria with Favor a couple of years ago. It was a fantastic experience. It was one of the few countries in Africa I have not been to. I'd been to Senegal and Ghana and Cameroon, but I hadn't been to Nigeria. So, I was very blessed, right? And look, it's an interesting. I grew up in Africa, but I'm still a white guy, right? So everybody's looking at me like I'm funny, and Favor's like, you can't walk around by yourself. You're the only white guy in town. And I'm like, no, it's going to be okay, right? I'll figure it out. Like I'm good. So I've had fantastic experiences. I've been able to travel all over the world, 85 countries so far.
Wow.
But my children grew up in America, right? And they've both been to Africa and Europe and the Caribbean. Both of them have been to over 10 countries, which most American kids can never say that. This summer alone, they got to go to Italy, Switzerland, France, and England. Like, what a fantastic summer. So I think,
my goodness.
If you integrate the two, you get to do things pretty well. So, yeah.
25 years of coaching experience, being at the peak of his career. The question is, what has been the lowest moments for you as a coach? Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure being an amazing coach, you must have had your lowest moments. You must have had times when you said, am I sure I really want to do this? You must have coached some athletes and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think I've had those athletes that I felt like I failed them as a coach, right? Like, I had an Australian kid that was a 400 hurdler that came over, and he's the one athlete that I've coached in my life that hasn't PR'd in their college career from high school, right? So in 25 years, the only guy that didn't PR. And I coached him hard. I coached him well. He liked to party, okay? And he was out all the time. He drank a lot. And that one I feel like was on him, right? I did everything I could to get things right for him and to coach him well. He chose a different path. So it's still a low moment for me, but it's not, I don't take that one personally, right? Because I feel like that was his choice. But I've had some athletes that I felt like could be really, really talented and really, really good at the next level, right? I had a high hurdler, Drew Brunson, who ran 7:53 indoors and 13:30 for me. He was NCAA champ. He was fifth at the American Olympic trials. But I couldn't get him to see the bigger picture, and to be willing to sacrifice his lifestyle. And you know, he's one of those kids you look back and you're like, man, I think that kid could have run 13:1 if I could have figured out how to get through to him. So I think those moments are quote unquote low moments, right? But you learn from that experience to use for the next athlete. And I think that's the balance there. So yeah, some low moments. Look, leaving Florida State was tough for me. I didn't get along with the head coach. It was a bad relationship. It put a lot of student athletes in a tough spot where they had to transfer. And I think that was probably the lowest moment in my coaching career. So yeah, excuse me. But you know, you bounce back from that, right? We moved on to Georgia, won 2 national titles. You know, had 3 or 4 Olympians there. So, you know, we did a good job in a couple of years at Georgia. So yeah, the bounce back is always the best part.
Okay. This question now is more personal. Being a student athlete myself, and also an athlete manager who recruits athletes, I've seen situations where athletes have been recruited, maybe transfer students, maybe athletes from just coming from their country, and they are doing good at what they are doing, but maybe they are in between events. And it's like they get to that particular place doing the program now. And for example, he or she is just used to doing this certain kind of program. And you said, oh, when you come in here, this is the event you're going to do, because that was the event you were doing from where you were coming from. And there was a certain kind of way you were being trained that brought you to where you were, and they saw you and they said, okay, we want to have you. And you arrive, and that student arrives at that college, and it's like he or she is detolerating.
Yes.
You know, in that state or in that situation, would it be said that the athlete is lazy? One. Would it be said that the coach is not doing what he or she is meant to do? Two. Or is it just that the program isn't working? Why I'm asking this question is I've had athletes face this challenge, and sometimes I don't know the answer to give. And you are a coach with 25 years working experience. So I would want to keep that. Well,
I would say this, right? Especially in today's world where information is at your fingertips, right? When you're being recruited, you have the ability to talk to every single athlete on that team by simply opening your Instagram page, right? And sending a DM, right? You can talk to every athlete that's being coached by that coach. So if you have all that information in front of you and you say, I'm a 400-meter runner and I do volume training, right? And you talk to the 400-meter people on that team and you say, what's your training look like on a day-to-day basis? And they go, well, we're a speed and power program. We never do anything over 300 meters. Everything's fast, right? If you've picked that university, then you picked that university for the wrong reasons. Maybe you like where it is geographically. Maybe you like the weather. Maybe you like the scholarship offer. Maybe you just want to be part of that team because it's a really good team. Well, then you've made an incorrect decision as an athlete, right? You have to pick based on the information that tells you that it's the right place for you to be successful. I hear this a lot from athletes. Well, I want to go to a place that's warm because, I grew up in Africa and it's warm there and the weather and this and that. So I picked school X because it was warm, but the training doesn't work for me. Well, let me ask you a question. Are you going to be successful in class every day when you're miserable because training sucks and you're not running fast? Are you going to be successful in your personal life? Are you going to be a happy person? And then how does that all work together to make your overall experience a good one? So the reasons you pick a university have to be practical, right? And most importantly, honest with yourself, right? Am I going there because I like the school colors, because I like a girl or boy on the team, because they gave me a little more scholarship money, whatever it is, right? Or am I going there because I truly think I can be successful in that program with that coach? Okay. So I will tell you that one falls on the athlete. Now, if the coach says, no worries, we do speed and power, but I'll do volume training with you.
Okay.
And then it doesn't happen when you arrive, then that's totally on the coach, right? 100% on the coach. My word is everything. Okay. You go back through 25 years, every kid I've coached will tell you that if Coach Ken says he's going to do X, then he will do X. Okay. I am not above having conversation with an athlete. In fact, my best quarter miler this year, we sat down at the end of the last year. Last year was the first year I coached him, and he said, Coach, I don't think that the system we're running works for me. I need more volume training. I need longer stuff. I need to train like a 400, 600 person. Cool, no problem. Come up with a plan. Let's implement it, right? And let's be together within our program, and let me give you an opportunity to have some input in your career, right? Now, if it doesn't work, then we share the blame, okay? Don't sit around at the end of the year and say, well, coach doesn't do a good job because it didn't work for me. We came up with the plan together. We will share the responsibility. If I come up with the plan totally myself, then I will take the responsibility 100%. So I think what you're saying is if you arrive at a place and they're not doing what they told you to do, then what's the scenario there, right? And that's why the transfer portal is the transfer portal, okay? Because of exactly that. The transfer portal doesn't exist because of track and field. It exists because of football and basketball, right? Let's be honest. Those student athletes want playing time. They want to be on the field, right? And the football coaches and the basketball coaches move schools so often that they pick a school because, I like Coach X, and then Coach X went somewhere else and I want to be able to go with them, or I want to transfer, or exactly what we just said, right? I'm a volume-based quarter miler. I arrived at school X. Coach left after a year. The new coach came in. They're a speed and power coach. That doesn't work for me. Well, then I gotta be able to move. Okay. But here's the underlying issue with all of this. When you make that poor decision the first time around and you say, I'm going to go there because I like the colors, I like so-and-so on the team, I like this or I like that, and it's not about the nuts and bolts, right? The training and the coach that's coaching you. Do I have a good relationship? Is the training going to work for me? What happens is you run poorly. And then when you go on the transfer portal, there's nowhere to go.
One wants to take you.
Right. Okay. And the coaches that are going to take you at that point are those coaches whose ego believes that the coach you got now is here, but I'm so much better that I can get you here because I'm a much better coach than them, right? And that's, for me, that's a scary scenario. So choose wisely, I guess.
This is a deep truth, though.
Yeah, I mean, Look, at the end of the day, everything we do in life, whether it's our sport, it's our what we decide to do as a major, it's a relationship with somebody in our lives. If I check my ego first, I'm going to be a lot more successful, right? I would love to be a heart surgeon, right? And save people's lives and make millions of dollars. I'm not that smart. Okay. I'm not smart enough to be a heart surgeon. Okay. I was not blessed with that ability. So if I went into school and I said, hey, I'm going to be pre-med, and they're like, dude, you have a 2.5 GPA from high school, right? That means I didn't check my ego. Okay. So when I have a relationship with my wife, I have to check my ego, right? I have to make sure that we're equals and we work well together and we have an equal part in our relationship. I can't say, well, I make more money than her, therefore I don't have to do as much work at home, right? Like everything we do, you check your ego. Now, the one place you don't is when you're trying to find your wife, right? You got to shoot for the stars.
Oh my God.
We'll see.
Coach?
Have you done your research? Have you seen my wife?
No. I think I need to know for you to say she was your best recruit. No.
Go ahead.
No. I would do my research.
Please do.
I would.
You'll see. You'll see.
She must be an amazing woman. Oh my goodness.
The best.
I feel like maybe when the season is off, you might have to come back to talk about being a coach, being a married coach, and what it takes to keep an amazing wife like yours.
Yeah, we can do a whole podcast on that one.
Great. So there is this notion about the NCAAs, and especially with this new roster thingy that came up. Mm-hmm. So I had a guest some weeks back, and he was like, the NCAA is more of business. I mean, it's like when you come into the NCAAs, man, it is business. And Africans are a bit emotional. They are hardworking, yes, but they are, when an African builds relationship with you, now you talked about hitting into the transfer portal straight up. Africans does not always think that way. They want to give you the opportunity to say, okay, let's wait a bit. It might get better. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it takes some things to go wrong for them to now figure out that, oh, I think I have to keep my emotions aside and understand that this is business. Yes. So for a coach who has been in the NCAAs for the past 25 years, would you agree with us that NCAA is a business and the athletes come in to do the business that needs to be done? And when you're not doing what you need to do, you're out.
Well, I think, look, football and basketball is a true business, right?
Okay.
Those student athletes either make their university a bunch of money or they don't, right? Track and field, we don't make any money. Okay. We simply spend money. But at the end of the day, if I have 12 scholarships on the men's side and I recruit 2 young people and they want to go out and party and drink and chase women and do all this kind of stuff, right? Then I'm paying you a scholarship to be a track and field athlete, and you think I'm paying you a scholarship to be a fraternity boy. Okay. So yeah, it's a business. Okay. I think what's missed in all of that, right? Obviously every kid understands that, hey, I'm on a scholarship here and there's an expectation that I come to practice, that I train, that I, do whatever. I think everybody understands that. But what some of the student athletes misplace is the pressure on that coach, right? So I'm an assistant coach and I recruited athlete X, right? When that athlete comes here and doesn't do well, right? And they're not doing what's necessary to be successful on the track, in the classroom, as a person, that reflects on me, okay? And the next time I go to my head coach and say, hey coach, I want to sign a kid and they're from this country. Well, do you remember the last one we had from there, right? Okay. Do you remember the last kid that was like that? And what happens is the coach takes that really personally because it affects their livelihood, right? It affects them going forward. So, well, I brought in a group of sprinters, and I've got 3 Nigerians and 2 of them keep getting in trouble. Well, that means we're not recruiting Nigerians anymore, right? Or maybe we're not recruiting sprinters anymore, right? Maybe we're going to recruit throwers because they don't get in as much trouble, okay? And that reduces my ability to do my job, right? And it puts my job at risk, right? And now we go back to my wife and my 2 kids and taking care of them and all those kinds of things. So I think oftentimes that's missed in the process, right?
Okay.
I have a South African kid on the team. We talked about this 2 days ago, and he was talking about how one of their kids that came to the NCAA, who's pro now, helped this young man get a debit card, right? And it's so when he did it, he now sees all of the charges on the debit card, right? And he called the kid up one day and he said, I'm watching what you're doing. You've been here for 1 semester, but you're out 3-4 nights a week. You're buying drinks at the club. I see charges at 1 a.m. Like, what are you doing to be successful? Okay. And those things put a coach in a difficult spot, because at the end of the day, I've put my reputation on the line for that athlete. And I think that in that scenario, yes, it's business. And what happens there is we go from a friendly relationship. I'm your coach. I've recruited you here. Everything's good, right? I want you to be successful. Come here. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to coach you hard. I'm going to do this and that, right? And what happens is now it's business. Hey, if you don't do what I tell you to do, if you don't do what I ask you to do, then we got to part ways. So yes, then it becomes a business for sure.
Okay. Rounding things up. This question, if I were to pick an athlete of yours and I tell him, or if an athlete of yours was to write a book about you, and you,
Okay.
and you had the opportunity to wish for what a particular chapter will be written about you, what would you want that chapter to say, and what would you title it? I have a guess on what the title is going to be, but
the bus driver. No, look, I tell people all the time I'm the bus driver, right? Like, I don't believe that this journey is about me, right? It's about my athletes, and my job is to make sure that they get to an opportunity, right? So I will drive you there. I will put you on the track. I will make sure you're on time. I'll make sure you're there in time to do the warm up, all those kinds of things. But ultimately, you doing what you need to do is part of your growth as an adult, and the ability to do things after track and field, after college, right? That will allow you to be a successful person. So there's always a process of, when you're a freshman, just come in and follow the guy in front of you, right? When you're a sophomore, you can ask me why we did things, okay? When you're a junior, then we can have a 50-50 relationship in the process, right? Come and talk to me about the training. Come and say to me, hey, coach, I feel like I need a little more of this, or I feel like, we're doing a little bit too much of this, because then now you're in your third year and you know your body a little bit better, okay? And by the time you're a senior, you should be able to write the program yourself up to 90%. And I'm giving you feedback that makes the other 10%, right? So I think the chapter would be about everything but track and field, okay? So what are we teaching you for the rest of your life? Because track and field is just a small part of it. What
would be your last word to athletes, to coaches who aspire to be like the great Coach Ken? What would you say? Check your ego. I mean, I'm going to keep that word. Yeah. I think I'm going to run with it.
Well, look, I think for coaches, it's the ability to not make it about yourself, right? Like most of us coach because we still want to be competitive, but we're too old to do it still, right? So, we crave that competition. And you can't make it more about you, because when you do, the first meet of the year becomes really, really important, right? So like we have a dual meet with Alabama on January 10th, okay? In the grand scheme of things, does that meet? It means nothing, okay? Now, if I make it about me, then I want to win every race, and I want to beat the Alabama coach at everything, and I want to do all those kinds of things. The reality is that I may have twice as much scholarship money as the Alabama sprints coach, right? I may have a better training scenario. I may have just recruited a little bit better this year. It doesn't mean I did better than him, okay? So check your ego, but always be understanding of what the athlete's goals are, right? Like, yes, I want to win an NCAA title. Well, then that means that the meet on January 10th means nothing, right? Because the NCAA is not till June. So I think on that side, on the coach's side, that would be, what I believe every coach should think about. From the athlete perspective, it's all about buy-in, right? If you're not willing to trust your coach 100%, then you pick the wrong coach. So pick wisely. If you have a question in your mind that maybe I don't truly believe everything they're telling me, then don't go there, right? Go somewhere where you're willing to buy in completely. There's no athlete in the world that buys in 90% to a coach and is successful. It just doesn't work. So is that good?
Coach Ken, it's been, this journey, you've been the driver. I'm the athlete in the bus.
There you go.
And trust me, I enjoyed the ride all the way. And I'm sure that every single person who comes across this particular episode would have picked, learned, understood, check your ego.
Yep.
As a coach, be the bus driver. It's not all about.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
also, as an athlete looking to come into the NCAAs, I mean, if you're not ready to buy in 100%, then that's not where you're meant to be.
Yes.
And it's been an amazing time with you, Coach Ken. Thank you for doing us the honor. And like I said, I would like to invite you back to come and talk us through that one special recruit
But
of yours.
you do your research first, and then we'll talk.
Most definitely. I think she would be the one I'll reach out to.
There you go. Yeah, you should. You actually should be a good guest on your podcast. So, yeah.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem.
And we come to the end of this particular episode. And until we meet again, I still remain your host, Star Mpama. Be good, stay safe, and bye for now.
Thank you for having me.